All right. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us today for our Tuesday webinar. And this week, what we're covering are free tools to know what college will actually cost. My name is Carol Trone, and I serve as Executive Director of the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt, also known as Debt Smarts. And I'm also Executive Director of Fair Opportunity Project. And FairOp works with students nationwide to empower them to access and afford college. And we do that through an array of virtual advising and essay review help and financial aid help. So there. Okay, but then what is Debt Smart? So just very quickly, so we are a statewide nonprofit organization. We're committed to helping students minimize student loan debt and borrowers avoid unmanageable student loan debt. So our mission is very broad. We help throughout the student journey. And so when it's before college, that means things like FAFSA help. We have a Money Smart contest. It's things like today's webinar. For students during college, we help them find scholarships and figure out budgeting strategies. And then after college, we offer a student loan helpline. All right, so what we're doing today, so we just talked about Debt Smarts, and then we're going to quickly look at what costs beyond tuition look like, why tuition costs are complicated. We're going to cover some basic tips quickly that can help guide you in how you're thinking about what those total college costs are. And then we're going to do a deep dive into, well, a deep dive of a couple minutes into a tool that I really like, which is called Tuition Tracker. All right. Well, tuition cost. It is complicated, and folks probably know this, but it's complicated in so many ways. One of it is, of course, there is no national standard for tuition. Tuition can vary quite a bit based on what the institution is. And if it's a public institution, then the factor of in-state versus out-of-state matters. But those distinctions don't matter for students when they are looking at a private institution. And in that case, what matters more is understanding how the sticker price model for a private college is going to be almost what no one pays. And so the net price and how you get there is going to be the thing that you really want to dig into. So that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But to give you an example of why thinking about tuition and then also the other costs of college can be really important is I'll just give you one example here. So tuition promise programs are popular here in Wisconsin and in many other states. And it's a powerful promise. So students whose family income goes to a certain level. So in Wisconsin, depending on the institution, it might be around 65,000. It might be a little bit less. But for those students, if they fill out their FAFSA, what the promise is last dollar. So again, you're going to apply federal, state, institutional aid, and then anything that's left for tuition costs, that's what this promise will cover. It does also include segregated fees. And so for Wisconsin institutions, those are fees that are added on top of the tuition, and they vary by the institution. So they could be anywhere from $200 to $800 or more. I talk to students who don't realize that these fees are going to be tacked on there until they get their tuition bill. So, so it can be something that can be significant that needs to be covered. And then the promise is also powerful in that it covers up to 4 years of study. But what tuition promise programs typically don't cover is on the right. So housing and room, meal plans, books, supplies, where are you living and how are you affording those costs when you're not in term? Things like parking, health insurance, travel. I know myself when we were looking at my daughter's insurance or her tuition bill and the whole, bill that we had to pay, the health insurance was something we didn't expect to see and took quite a bit of time to iron that out. So, these last minute surprises when tuition bills are due are not the things that, you want to see. So general message here is that not all the money, all the buckets of money that are out there for college can be used in the same way. And so as you're planning on how you're going to cover those college costs, it's important to know that some of these ways of paying for those costs have different requirements. They have different limitations. You can't always use these supports for all the costs that you're going to encounter. So I won't go into it today. We're featuring a webinar in November that goes into detail around the 529 and specifically how that works here in Wisconsin. 529 can cover a broader array than those tuition promise programs. Pell Grant also has some limitations in terms of costs that a student may find essential to cover, but are not considered to be eligible costs for the Pell Grant. Work study appears in an offer letter, but you don't get those funds unless you work and you work in a work study eligible job. Institutional grants, so think of that as college grants. They might come because of merit. They might come because of financial need. They also, though, may have stipulations based on the major, maybe where you're from, your GPA, how many credits you're taking, and so forth. And then outside scholarships. And I do want to say a little bit more about those. So let me go here. So scholarships, a sometimes unpleasant surprise that I want to draw people's attention to is something called scholarship displacement. So again, if you're thinking of all the buckets of money that you have to go towards that college cost, we know we always encourage people to apply for those scholarships, look for those, add them up. And then sometimes, depending on the college's policy, a student can get a very unpleasant surprise when it comes time to paying that tuition bill. And that can come from a scholarship displacement policy. So essentially what it means is that you can get, as a student, an outside scholarship that you've earned. Maybe it's from a community organization, something you've applied for online. And then what may happen is that your college may say, okay, that's great. You have this $2,000 scholarship. We're going to reduce your aid offer by that amount. And again, it can come as a great surprise. It can also, of course, create quite a bit of financial hardship last minute as you're paying or preparing to pay your college bill. So just something to know about that is those policies about whether a college will do this. It varies by the institution. It also varies by the state. Several states actually now are enacting laws that bar colleges from doing this. Often what'll happen is when you bring in that outside scholarship, if that college has a displacement policy, sometimes they call it an award displacement, where that will affect your overall aid is in the merit aid that you get. So not necessarily the need aid, but the merit aid. Also, you may want to know, if they do have this displacement policy, will it displace the loans that they're offering you? Will it displace the work study? Will it displace other kinds of institutional aid? And remember, a lot of aid that comes particularly from private colleges may not be need-based. It may be that merit-based aid. And then the other, important thing to be aware of is the timing of when that cost adjustment happens. So As a student, you may get that scholarship in the spring of your senior year. You may get those actual funds sent to the college right before your first fall tuition bill is due. And so all of those last minute adjustments can really affect what you're expecting to pay. And I want to go back to this tip one. So I won't spend time on this because I want to make sure that we get to the tuition tracker tool. But I'll share out this slide deck with everyone who's registered afterwards. But again, it's important to make sure that this kind of research, this kind of work, looking at tuition costs, looking at cost of attendance, comes before you decide on the school that you absolutely want to go to. So I don't mean to kill anyone's dreams, by any means, but it really is important to do this research as you're putting together a college list. And so, for instance, just one example I'll raise here. So here in Madison, where I live, the UW-Madison is a tremendously popular college. It's getting more popular every year. They have really limited on-campus housing. And so the alternative is you're looking at off-campus housing. It is very expensive here in the downtown area near campus. The same is true for a lot of college towns. So that can be, again, an unexpected cost that can really increase your overall expenses. The other thing, and our tool is going to show you how you can see these things, but these numbers. But so retention and graduation. So retention is how many of those students are sticking around from year one to year two. And then graduation rates may seem obvious, but if we're thinking of a 4-year degree, we probably are thinking it's going to take 4 years to complete that degree. And so we're thinking of the overall cost as being the cost times 4. But in fact, for a lot of colleges, it may take a student 5 years or 6 years. And the federal data that colleges use actually will track that 4-year graduation rate over 6 years. So it is something, again, that you want to dig into to know, should you be budgeting for 4 years for a 4-year degree or longer? And those rates can vary quite a bit. So using Wisconsin as our example, they can range graduation rates 18 to 82 for graduation, and then retention can be 63% from 1 year to the next to 95. And switching colleges is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that you've got to make sure then that when you're transferring, you're meeting deadlines, the credits that you're transferring are transferring the way you want them to. And then, one of the biggest things I just emphasize all the time when I'm working with students is don't just apply to one school. And the reason for that is that these pricing models really are different. And you won't know how they're different if you only have one offer to look at. Okay, so we are going to go into the tuition tracker tool, but I wanted to share that, there are a lot of tools out there that students and families can use to dig into these kinds of numbers to really understand what they're talking about in terms of the total cost of attendance. And so here are some of the links that I'll share out with you in ways that you can look at what different ways that you can compare those costs and really understand a net cost of a college. So we're going to go into this tuition tracker, and this is going to be a live demo here. So tuition tracker comes from, actually it's a project from a nonprofit effort. What they did was they took the federal data that's available that also informs all those other tuition cost tools that I showed you on that screen. And what they do is they allow you in this tracker to compare costs and to look at those costs. And again, these are, obviously they're taking general numbers, but these are the reported numbers that the schools provide themselves to the federal data tracking resource called iPEDS, and it shows you those numbers over years. So if we wanted to look in, just to start with Wisconsin, because that's where we are. So we can just look at Wisconsin here. We can see all the colleges. These are all the colleges that report their data on things like cost and retention and graduation to iPEDS, which is the federal data tracking tool. So you can see all of these, and again, note that it says sticker price. And if that's all we did was just look at sticker price, we'd say, holy smokes, well, let's make sure then we just look at Blackhawk Technical College because that sticker price looks the lowest by far, or we could look at this college of a nominee nation. But what the tool here lets you do is you can dig in. So I'm going to go into Beloit College. So Beloit College, it's private, it's 4-year, and it allows you to see what the average cost is based on income. So right now, I'm going to use this 75 to 110 income range, and I'm going to save this. So you can see already, so if you just looked at sticker price, you see it's $76,000. Beloit's a small liberal arts college, very far south in Wisconsin. If you said your income was less than 30, that net cost goes down to 18. So there is fluctuation there based on your family income. Now let's do a public university. So we'll do UW-Madison. Whoops. Oh, maybe I have to spell it out. There it is. Okay. So there's University of Wisconsin-Madison. And you can see that the projected net cost, if you're in this same income band, doesn't go down as much. So their projected cost here is $22,572, and we're going to save this school. And then if you scroll down, when you pull up these results, it tells you how it's factoring these in. And some of these things are projections just because of the lag time in how the data is reported. In a public university that's out of state, you are going to not get much of a cost break if you go to a public institution. So you can see where these different amounts come in state, out of state, they're subsidizing those in-state students. So you can see this projection here gives you some nice narrative. It tells you a little bit more about the data, where it's coming from, how they're calculating it. It tells you graduation rates. So again, a graduation rate is a really important thing to pay attention to because you want that degree to get that income benefit from all those years of schooling. So University of Wisconsin is much higher than the national average. 89% really is among the top of colleges in America. You can see how those students do based on their identified demographic background. You can see retention, again, excellent retention. UW-Madison is, primarily people who are attending full-time. You can see male versus female. So it gives you some of that breakdown so you can get sort of a sense of what's that, student composition. And I've saved in the bottom corner here, if you can see, it tells you how many schools you've saved. So you can see here I've saved those 2 schools. I've saved Beloit and I've saved University of Wisconsin-Madison. Is there a third school that anyone wants me to add in here? Otherwise, I'll just pick one. All right, I'm going to put in University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. All right. So here you can see, so the sticker price is lower, several thousand lower than it was for Madison, a lot lower than it is for Beloit. We're going to save that school. You can see that net price does come down a little bit in that net price or net income bracket. And now I'm going to click on compare your schools. So this is where I think this tool does a really nice job, is that I just put in three, I saved those, and now I can put those in my comparison. So we've got those three. So what I have, back to my tip that I gave to for students, I have a private here and I have publics. And these tend to be larger publics, but in different locations and with different sticker prices. So you can see here that in fact, if you're at that income level, that puts you in a household income of say around 100K, you can see that the net price is actually not as different um, as you'd expect perhaps between the private and the public. And so this is where some people, if you're looking at this and you're saying, well, so cost looks like it's going to be comparable. Um, let's look at those graduation rates. And you can see again, University of Madison has the strongest graduation rates here. Beloit's got those smaller class sizes. UW-Milwaukee might be important to you because it offers certain programs, that aren't available at the other two places. So you can see those sizes there. Um, you can click into, so you can copy this link to save those schools, and you can. So if I do that, you can continue to compare those. Let me see where I put that link. All right, maybe that's to bring up a new. That's probably to bring up a new window. So, and then just, people talk about Ivy Leagues. So here's just one more example. So why would you spend so much time and effort trying to get into an Ivy League? Well, one reason maybe because your net price is actually going to be lower. So if we compare there, compare there, you can see that the net price here of these three is actually significantly lower than it is for UW-Madison, and also lower than it is for Beloit. And so, the things that can affect how a college, sets their net price, can be for all those reasons of like, where are you coming from? What's your background? What are you choosing to major in, and so forth. So that sticker price again is going to not necessarily be your best indication of what you're going to be paying. So let me see. I want to stop sharing my screen just to see if there are questions. So any questions about some of the things I went through quickly there? Okay, so let me just go into the final screens here. So again, here, maybe there's a message. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful information. So uh, just because we do want to keep these short and sweet to a half an hour, this is how you can reach us at our organization. So if you have student loan questions, there's an email here that you can use to send your questions about your student loan. This number is our helpline, this 833-589-0750, and our website is Debt Smarts. So whoops, let me go back here. So again, pretty much on every Tuesday at 12:30, we are going to be covering a range just in this kind of 30-minute profile format. So we'll be covering things related to the changes in student loans for families that are looking at applying to UW-Madison or something like 270 other colleges nationwide. They have a financial aid application called the CSS Profile. We'll be going through some tips for completing that, more information on how 529s work, and then also information about student loans and the changes that are happening there, and then how you can find scholarships and more topics that will be posted on our website. All right. Thanks for sharing your time with me today. We'll be posting this on our website and on our YouTube channel, and I'll be sending out the slides after today's session. I'll just ask any other final questions before we end our webinar today. All right. Thanks for joining, and have a great rest of your day.